Hi and welcome to Happy Kitty Kitchen. Today I'm showing you how I made my own pesto using the beautiful Italian basil leaves that I grew in my mini home garden. They went from seeds to this in only a month, and before I knew it, I had way too many basil plants, overcrowding my garden, and that is why I decided to make pesto. I already have all the ingredients required, so why not? I have walnuts, which I have soaked in water to remove that bitter taste. I have pine nuts, garlic, Parmesan cheese, and of course my washed basil leaves. I also have olive oil infused with garlic, rosemary, and thyme, which is perfect for this. I have dried oregano, black pepper, and salt. So grab a blender or food processor and let's begin. Obviously, I didn't measure anything, but I have a general idea of the ratios that I want from each ingredient. This would be about 10 grams of Italian basil leaves, I think, but don't stress too much about the measurements because the whole point of making your own pesto is that you can control the amount of ingredients and alter them to suit your own taste. It is very important that you don't add all the ingredients at once because you can't subtract those ingredients once they're mixed, but you can always add in more at a time if needed, right? I'm blending up the basil by itself first just to make room for the remaining ingredients. I add in salt, garlic cloves. I have to note that I did end up adding even more garlic at the end because I like it and that's my preference. Black pepper, pine nuts, oregano, and olive oil. A lot of people like their pesto with gallons of olive oil, and I'm not judging, but I prefer to cut down the olive oil with some water, and you'll see me add that later in the process. I blend and wipe down the sides to make sure everything gets incorporated, and now I'm adding in the walnuts. Please do not skip the step of rinsing and soaking them in water. Keep them soaked for at least 30 minutes. That step is really important because it removes the bitter, unpleasant flavor from them, and you end up with a much better flavor profile from the walnuts. I also add in shaved Parmesan cheese. If you don't have Parmesan, you could use Grana Padano or Pecorino Romano or Manchego. These are cheeses with very low moisture in them and are a bit on the salty side, so they add depth to the pesto and texture as well. Also, just a helpful tip and something that I do, I always buy blocks of Parmesan cheese, never the pre-shredded Parmesan because that is filled with preservatives, additives, and other trash ingredients you don't need, and the flavor is like sawdust. Buy a block instead at the deli. That's a better value and quality for your money than store it in a Ziploc bag in the freezer, and it will last forever without spoiling. Hope this step helps. Just thought I'd share. Now, back to the pesto. If the consistency is too dry, you could always add in more olive oil to help liquefy and blend again. I'm finally at the consistency I want, but after tasting it, it did need a bit more seasonings, and also the taste of the raw garlic was a bit too much for me. It was overtaking the pesto, so I decided to cook it down. I added water as well in the pan because as I cook it down, it will lose some moisture, so I'm compensating with liquids now. I cooked it down while stirring every once in a while for about 10 to 13 minutes. The cheese has become stringy, as you can see. The color has become a darker green. The smell is stronger and toastier, and the garlic taste is still there. It's just not raw, pungent garlic anymore. Earlier, I sterilized these jars quickly by pouring boiling water into them, and now I'm going to transfer the pesto in there, press it down to make sure there aren't air pockets and bubbles in there. Pockets of air and little specks of pesto on the sides are your enemy, and they could very easily become an environment for fungus and bacteria to grow. And it could spoil the pesto, so that is why I'm also wiping down the edges. Cover with a thin layer of olive oil on top to seal the pesto from air and give it extra protection from spoiling, and that's it, I'm done. When it cools down, I keep it in the fridge. I like to spread pesto on a slice of sourdough with some thinly sliced tomatoes and a drizzle of balsamic vinegar. It also makes a great crudité or vegetable stick dip. Obviously, it's wonderful on pastas, pasta salads, and even in pizzas. There's just a lot you can do with pesto. Check out the link above for a pesto recipe we've made before on the channel. I'll also link the recipes in the description box. Thank you for watching. I hope this helped you and inspires you to grow your own basil and make your own pesto. Bye!